Good day flight simmers, as promised, back with another update thus far. Before we talk about Explain 12.4.4, I want you to do something for me. If you haven't watched my video on Explain 12.5 yet, go and check that one out when you're finished here. Because 12.5 is where you're seeing some of the biggest things coming to Explain 12. But today, I want you to go backwards, back to 12.4.4, and there's something interesting about this update. Originally, Laminar Research described 12.4.4 as a minor bug fix update with additional features still provisional, but now 12.4.4 is being called the SDK update. And you might be thinking, okay, SDK, that's for developers, why should I care? Well, what if I told you this update includes a new panel graphics API, major improvements to weather radar, new snow coverage, and even bring very interesting new aircraft models to gateway airports. And perhaps more importantly, what developers can do with these tools could affect in Explain 12 in the future. So today we're going to break down exactly what's coming and ask the big question: is Explain 12.4 actually a bigger deal than it sounds? Let's start with the obvious question: what exactly is the SDK? The software development kit is essentially the collection of tools and interfaces that developers use to build things that communicate with Explain. Think about your future third-party aircraft, the displays, the FMC, the EFB, the weather radar, the custom avionics, the plugins. All of these developers need ways to communicate with the simulator, and as Explain itself becomes more advanced, the tools developers use have to evolve too. That's where 12.4.4 becomes important, because Laminar isn't simply fixing a few bugs. They're giving developers a new foundation for building parts of the Explain experience. And this is probably the biggest part of the entire SDK update, the panel graphics API. This is designed to give developers a much more modern way of creating cockpit displays and avionics inside Explain. And one of the biggest changes is the move towards a Vulkan-based graphics pipeline. Why does that matter? Because modern aircraft displays are incredibly complicated. Your PFD, your navigation display, weather radar, synthetic vision, moving maps, flight plan information, terrain, weather, traffic, and all of this information has to be drawn and updated constantly. The new panel graphics API gives developers a modern framework to handle this type of information. We're talking about things such as simulator maps, synthetic vision, weather radar, anti-aliased vector graphics, and improved front rendering. And that last part might sound small, but if you've ever looked at an aircraft display with blurry or jagged text, you know how much those little details can affect the cockpit experience. So this isn't simply about making something prettier, it's about giving developers better tools to build more sophisticated avionics. Now imagine where this could go. A developer could create a highly detailed navigation display that can interact with simulator maps. They could incorporate weather information, they could use synthetic vision, they can build their own symbolic and presentation around the simulator's underlying data. And that's the important distinction. Laminar isn't saying here's one new aircraft display, they're saying here's a better set of tools for developers to create their own. And that's potentially much bigger, because once these tools are in the hands of developers, we don't know exactly what they're going to create with them. And that's where Explain third-party ecosystem becomes so important. It doesn't stop there. The new framework also opens the door to technologies such as MGUI, CF, and the newer XLOA 2.0 environment. MGUI can help developers create interfaces and tools. CF brings Chromium-based web technology into equation, and the LOA gives developers another way to interact with these systems. So we're looking at a much broader development environment. And for us as flight simmers, the important thing isn't necessarily knowing how to program any of this. It's knowing what it could eventually produce. Better aircrafts, better avionics, better tools, and potentially much immersive cockpits. But now let's move away from the developer side, because 12.4.4 also gives us something that we can actually see: weather radar. Laminar has spent a significant amount of time recalibrating the strength of weather radar returns. and that means we're getting a wider range of colors representing those returns. But there's another visual change that I think is even more interesting. The weather radar returns are getting more character. Previously, the radar could have a very pixelated appearance. In 12.4.4, Laminar is introducing radial sweep and distortion to the X1000 weather radar, and other default weather radar systems were equipped. And that actually makes sense. Real weather radar isn't taking a perfectly sharp photograph of the atmosphere. It's sweeping outwards from the aircraft in narrow beams and measuring how strong precipitation reflects the radar signal. So the returns can have that characteristics radial distortion, and Explain is now trying to represent that more realistically. And then we have snow. Explain 12.4.4 is bringing persistent regionalized snow coverage driven by live weather, and this is not simply snow on. The snow coverage changes depending on your location. It works over off imagery, and instead of creating one giant block of snow, the coverage gradually changes towards the horizon, with snow depth accumulating more heavily in the distance. So if you're flying through a mountainous area during winter weather, the environment can actually start to feel like a winter environment. And this is one of those features where you can look at the screenshots and immediately understand what Laminar is trying to accomplish. By the way, if you've made it this far, thank you for watching. Seriously. If you're enjoying this breakdown, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know in the comments which part of Explain 12.4.4 are you the most excited about. The SDK, the radar, the snow, or what I'm about to tell you next. Because Mr. X is back on the scene, and if you're around Explain for a while, you know exactly why that name gets people excited. If you know SFD airports, then you know the work associated with Mr. X. And according to Explain Discord, you guys enjoyed the previous round of static aircraft updates so much that Laminar's talented artists Eric and Mr. X have decided to make more. And this time, we're getting 5 new static aircraft models for gateway airports, and 2 of them are particularly interesting: the Airbus A350-900 and the Airbus A350-1000. Now, before you get too excited, these are non-flying static aircrafts. You're going to start seeing more modern aircrafts sitting around gateway airports, more variety, more life. And this is actually a perfect example of why the SDK and developer ecosystem matter. And maybe that's the most interesting thing about Explain 12.4. It's not necessarily about what you see on day one. It's about what these changes allow Explain to become. The developers now have better tools. The simulator is getting better weather representation. The airports are getting more light. The foundation is being prepared for what comes next. And then you look at Explain 12.5 and the picture gets even more interesting. So I'll leave you with this. Will Explain 12.4 propel you towards Explain 12? Maybe the answer is yes, maybe it's not, maybe it's not there yet. But one thing is becoming clear: Explain 12 isn't standing still. And if Laminar keeps building the foundation and the developers like Mr. X keep building on top of it, the future of Explain 12 could be very, very interesting. If you haven't watched my Explain 12.5 video yet, check that out next. Thank you for watching. Keep the blue side up, keep exploring, and I'll see you in the next one.